Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. In this lesson, I'm going to explain what triads are and give you a little bit of theory to help you understand them better. First off, if you'd like more details for this lesson and more in-depth explanation about this topic, Music Theory for Guitar e-guide. And that's a free e-guide. You can just download that for free. And like I said, it has all the information that's in this lesson plus much more, so it'll be really valuable to you. And since it's free, no reason not to go download that. And I'm working on it right now as I'm filming this lesson, so it might not be out as you're watching this lesson. If it's not out, it'll say coming soon. So just watch out for when it does become available. But don't worry if it's not out. You can still follow along in this lesson because all the charts are going to be on the screen. So like I said, I'm going to talk about triads in this lesson, and it'll be really useful to you if you have a basic understanding of the major scale and intervals. It'll make it a lot easier to follow along in this lesson. You can still follow along if you don't. I'll do my best to explain, but I'm not going to go into depth about the major scale or anything, and that's where music theory really starts, is with the major scale and understanding intervals. So definitely be useful to you to have a basic understanding about the major scale and intervals. Like I said, I'll try my best to explain as much as possible as I go through. So triads are your most basic type of chord, and they contain a root, a third, and a fifth interval of some sort. And those three intervals will tell you whether the chord is major, minor, diminished, or augmented. And a major, minor, diminished, or augmented are your most basic and most important chords to understand. So a major chord is built 1, 3, 5, or root, major third, perfect fifth. A minor triad is built 1, flat 3, 5, or a root, a minor third, perfect fifth. A diminished triad is built 1, flat 3, flat 5, or root, minor third, diminished fifth. And an augmented chord is built 1, 3, sharp 5, or root, major third, augmented fifth. And if I was just to take a basic chord that you would know, a basic open chord, for example, like a C major, this is a triad chord, except some of those notes are doubled up. So all I have is a C, which is my root, an E, which is my third, major third, a G, which is my perfect fifth, and then I have another C and another E. So it's just those three notes which make this a triad. It's just you have more than three notes that are ringing out because you have some of those notes doubled up. And then the same thing, if I just took a A minor chord, it'd be the same thing. So this A minor chord that you should know is just the A, which is the root, E, which is the perfect fifth, another A, C, which is the minor third, and then another E. So again, that's just a triad chord with some of those notes doubled up. So in this lesson, we're not going to focus on bigger chords like that have notes doubled up. We're just going to focus on actually playing three notes. So just three notes, no doubled up notes. So if we were to start with a major triad, so if I just start on A, I'm just going to start on A because it falls in a place on the neck where I can reach the notes as I'm going back. If I start in G, I'd have some open strings, and I want to be able to fret all the notes. So if I start with A, and if I play just a little A major scale, so A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. So the intervals in a major scale are root, major second, makes a major scale. So to build a major triad, like I said, is a root, major third, perfect fifth. So right here, So major is 1, 3, 5. You raise the fifth, half a step, that would give you 1, 3 sharp, major third, augmented fifth. And those are your most basic triads. Those are your most important ones, and that is the start of harmony in music and what you can do with chords, and this is how chords work. And so you take this knowledge and one more thing that I want to point out 3, and then the 5th root. So it doesn't matter what order the chords are in, you're still going to need a 7th chord. But when you're talking about triads, basic synths, and how to break down inversions, you start, like I talked about, with your root as the lowest note, that's the position, and then third, fifth, the first inversion goes your third, your fifth, and then your root, and then second inversion goes your fifth, your root. But don't worry if you don't understand that. I'll have other lessons that dive into inversions and more theory. This is
let's break it up and tone apart. Chords are typically constructed by stacking thirds, and depending on the scale, both minor and major thirds are used through this diatonic harmonization. A minor third is the distance of 3 semitones, and a major third is the distance of 4 semitones. So if we have 2 or more notes next to each other which are less than that, so either a semitone or even a tone, which is the distance of 2 semitones, then we are making use of a cluster. As our more traditional 4-note chords are stacked in thirds to generate such as the 3rd, 5th and 7th, then this means that we're making use of a diatonic scale tone between those 4 tones. Could imply or be a part of from the perspective of each root note. To do this, we can take 2 notes a semitone apart and lock them in place while we chromatically change the bass note. And then, in turn, we can think about what scale tones the cluster could be, and therefore what harmony it could imply for each bass note acting as the root. So, let's take a B and a C for our semitone cluster. I'm choosing these notes because it allows us to use an open string. Now, open strings aren't essential for playing clusters, however it can definitely give us more voicing options as well as avoid the need to constantly stretch our hand. Also, open strings just resonate and sound really good. Okay, let's start with using C as our root, and we'll ascend chromatically from there. So, the intervals of our cluster notes in relation to C being the root give us the major 7 and a root. This means that this cluster can be used within a voicing or phrase for any scale that has a major 7th. The obvious example is just a basic C major 7. But this could also be used within a C leading sound. Now, it is important to also look at the other parent scales and their modes, as this cluster will of course work for any of the many scales that have a major 7th and, a root note. However, at this point, I don't want us to get too hung up on the vast amount of modal options this cluster can imply, but instead, I just want us to start to recognize what this cluster is in relation to that specific root note in terms of intervals. A process which I'll show later will give us a much quicker way to learn and apply this sound when confronted with a specific harmonic situation where, we desire this sound of a cluster for our voicing or phrase. However, but just as an example, let's quickly list out the many options for this root note just to show how we can find them, but then for the others, we'll keep it simple and just do a basic overview. For this, I'm going to think about my main parent scales, the major, melodic minor, harmonic minor, and the harmonic major. I've made cheat sheet PDFs of these parent scales as they're a really helpful resource for stuff like this, just because every scale has an Ionian augmented. We also get Lydian with a sharp 9, or also Lydian augmented sharp 9. Of course, this cluster works for the parent scale harmonic major itself, as that has a major 7th in it as well. Let's also remember the various minor scales which have major 7ths too, such as melodic minor or harmonic minor, or even melodic minor sharp 4, a mode from harmonic major. We can also look at further sounds not within those parent scales, like the symmetrical whole half diminished or also the augmented scale. But again, let's just keep it simple for now, as later in the video when we talk about the process for, immediately generating the cluster options for whatever harmony we're confronted with, you'll see that we don't necessarily need to learn all of what we're currently doing in super detail. It's just a nice visual exercise to first start with as a way to demonstrate some voicing examples. So for the next root notes, we'll just keep it simple and cover the intervals and what they are and the general sound that they would work for. Okay, moving to the next root note, D flat, while the cluster notes stay locked in place. Well, for this one, we get a major 7th and a flat 7, so it doesn't really line up to any of the usable harmony which we'll be calling upon, and therefore doesn't really give us anything, so we can just skip this root note. The D in the bass, the cluster is now the 6th, flat 7th. So this is going to work great for our dominant chords that have a natural 13th, such as a dominant sus, or just a regular D13. Maybe something with more tension, like a D13 with a flat 9 or with a sharp 9. Again, without covering all the options, another common sound would be to use this cluster within a D Dorian context. Next one, over E flat, we now get the sharp 5 and 6th. So my first thought would be like an E flat major 13 with a sharp 5 type sound. Okay, so now we can already start to spot something that's going to help us with the application of these cluster options. With a sound like E flat major 13 sharp 5, you could see it as implying the E flat Lydian augmented scale, which is the 3rd mode of the C melodic minor parent scale. If we instead hear the voicing I just played, but with C in the bass, well, we clearly get a C minor major 7, just like we had earlier, as that was one of our options when C was our root note while still using the same 2-note cluster. This tells us that the cluster used for the parent scale will of course be found within each of its modes.
This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. Taking off pentatonics and making them into a bigger shape, 3-note per string, and seeing where we can go from there. I want to show you this idea up here. We're going to use D minor as our kind of framework for this one. So our normal D minor pentatonic might look like this. I'm sure you're familiar with that, hopefully. And you've got another shape next to it, right? The major pentatonic, which would be starting on F here. You'll notice that there's one note in the middle of all that is shared, and what I want you to do is imagine that you're kind of going to join these kind of two boxes up and you get this. Okay? Figure this out over the rest of these shapes. This could take quite a while if you're not familiar with these, but we've got this major shape, and then this one here, like the third, so we could go.
visualizing your pentatonic all over the neck. Big stretchy stuff there. Then we've got one more here. This one here. Figure is a
It'll depend on what the intervals are in relation to each scale on whether it'll work well.
Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I want to share with you a very simple trick that will help you break free from the good old pentatonic box, which is a wonderful thing, but it can be quite limiting for a lot of guitar players. So this is the basic pentatonic pattern that we all know. And the main problem with it, no matter how useful it is, it becomes very easy to get stuck in it. So whatever key you're playing in, you just play up and down a few frets, but you're always playing kind of the same thing. Some guitar players might expand on it a little bit by going up here. That's a very common way of doing it. Some will go below. But this is pretty much it. So how do we get there? How do we get to the point where we can play freely all over the fretboard in any key with the pentatonic scale? Well, the obvious answer is, of course, playing all the patterns throughout the fretboard in all keys 1,000 times. But if you don't quite have the time for that right now, let's consider this. If you look at the pentatonic scale all over the fretboard, you'll notice that there's really only two patterns or two figures, two sets of 4 notes that you have to memorize. The first one is this. And the next one is this. So here's the trick. Imagine a mirror at the end of each of these two figures, and that will give you the natural continuation of the scale along these same strings. I'll do it in the key of E minor pentatonic, and for example, I start here on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. This gives me the first figure, starting from the root, and the notes are E, G, A, and B. Now if I play the same pattern but in mirror image from this axis, I'll find the next figure, which is G, A, B, and D. All together they give me the full scale, like that. Now, where this second pattern here ends on the 7th fret, I can start the second figure, the square one, the easy one. And the notes here would be A, B, D, and E. And again, from this square, I can play the mirror image of it, which is basically 3 frets up. And that gives me D, E, G, and A. Same figure, same pattern, same fingering. Just like that. At the end of this, I can start over again with the previous one and its mirror image, and then after that I'd have the same one again. Now this works on every set of 2 strings. If I were to do it on the 5th string with the first figure, then I play the mirror image. At the end of each of these, we'd find the square ones. You see? So here's the trick. Imagine a mirror at the end of each of these 2 figures, and that will give you the natural continuation of the scale along these same strings. I'll do it in the key of E minor pentatonic, and for example, I start here on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. This gives me the first figure, starting from the root, and the notes are E, G, A, and B. Now if I play the same pattern but in mirror image from this axis, I'll find the next figure, which is G, A, B, and D. All together they give me the full scale, like that. Now, where this second pattern here ends on the 7th fret, I can start the second figure, the square one, the easy one. And the notes here would be A, B, D, and E. And again, from this square, I can play the mirror image of it, which is basically 3 frets up. And that gives me D, E, G, and A. Same figure, same pattern, same fingering. Just like that. At the end of this, I can start over again with the previous one and its mirror image, and then after that I'd have the same one again. Now this works on every set of 2 strings. If I were to do it on the 5th string with the first figure, then I play the mirror image. At the end of each of these, we'd find the square ones. You see? Like that. And it works everywhere. Just be mindful of the 3rd and 2nd string. As you know, they're tuned differently, so the 2nd string will gain an extra fret. And that's it, the very simple trick that will help you play the pentatonic scale all over the fretboard in any key you want. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. If you did, maybe give it a like. If you haven't joined us yet, please subscribe. And as always, I look very much forward to reading and replying to all your comments. Thank you very much as always for being there, and I'll see you in the next video.
Hey guys, how are you doing? It's Cam back at you again. Today I wanted to answer a question that I'm getting an awful lot recently, and since I've started doing Skype lessons, and it's the sort of fastest way to play fast, if that makes sense. How's it going, guys? Today I'm wanting to address a question I get asked all the time, which is not how do I get out of playing pentatonic licks, but how do I repurpose the scale and playing the same old licks over and over again. So in this lesson, I don't know how many I'm giving you, but I'm basically covering some of the more basic ideas, going right up to the difficult and the weird, probably. Some of you are going to ask about my gear. Today I'm using this Harley Benton Fusion T in this really lush purple sparkle finish. I'm going to be doing a demo on it soon, but also a lot of people ask about amps, picks, etc. And when it comes to picks, I'm not that picky. That was a bit gross. But I am using today the Dan's Guitar Store Precision Pick. Look at the point on that. If you were in an airport with this, you'd be stopped for having a pointed implement or something. They're available on Amazon. There is a link down below. I'm not sponsored by Dan's Guitar Store or anything like that. I just wanted to spread the word because these are pretty addictive, if you can ever say that about a pick. They're really, really cool. For the majority of this lesson, I'm going to be staying within the same key so you can hear how each lick has a different impact. Once you've got them sussed in one position, all you would have to do is move them around to a key of your choosing. Let's start with just single notes. You could take the pentatonic scale as it is. That sounds pretty boring and basic on its own, as if you were just learning a scale, but however, if you take a more of a legato approach to it, you might start like this. Then end on the octave above. It actually portrays a completely different idea. It doesn't even sound like the pentatonic. Give it a bit more speed. Really good to start a solo. You can combine this with other licks that we're going to be using later on, but there's the first one. If you want to make that even more fun, you can add the flat fifth in there, otherwise making it the blues scale. This next lick I call pentatonic twos. I first heard it from Vivian Campbell, I can't remember which solo, but it goes like this. Played a little bit quicker, it sounds like this. And kind of interesting because you're putting the pentatonic scale in a slightly unconventional order, and if you look at it from above, it's like you're taking 2 notes from the right, then 2 notes from the left, and picking everything and adding some palm muting. Slowly you've got this. In terms of finger choice, use whatever you feel most comfortable with. In my case, I tend to use the ones that I'm most likely to end on because I like to do a lot of bending and vibrato. It's really, really good for throwing in as like a little statement piece. You get the idea there, just a couple little mini examples. Getting trickier now, triplets. Used famously by Thin Lizzy, Randy Rhoads, Gary Moore, and countless others. I'm going to give you both versions, the ascending version and the descending version. Starting off with the descending version, I'm using a little bit of hammer-on and pull-off action here. I'm going to take you through basically the whole lick slowly. I'm not going to dwell on it for too long. The ascending version is very similar, I'm just picking everything this time. Now, one thing that's important with these particular licks is knowing how to apply them as well. You can make combinations with the stuff that we've covered already. You can go up the descending version of triplets. There you've got a full lick there. If you want it to be extra creative, take the triplet pattern we've just learned and stretch it out with your little finger to 2 frets above where you would have been. So the 12th fret up to the 14th fret and do the same thing and you get a really cool Steve Vai lick.
The diminished chord, whew! Where do we start? A mysterious sounding combination of notes that on its own can sound eerie and weirdly directionless, but in the right context, it can sound so good. Alright, so this example sounds a bit jazzy, but also in blues and pop music, it's pretty common, the diminished chord, as we'll see in this video. This magical chord is created by stacking 3 minor third intervals on top of each other. So from C, a minor third up, C, E flat, and G flat. But usually when we see diminished chords as such in music, these will be diminished 7th chords, where we add a 4th minor third interval. So it's C, E flat, G flat, and B double flat or A. Let's call it A for now, more on that later. So now we have 4 notes, and there's 3 fairly easy ways to play the diminished chord. In 3 ways: the root on the 6th like this, or the root on the A string like this, C diminished, or the root on the D string like this. So we have 3 shapes: C,
Thank
Bye.